representing the Starving Camels SSLD, it is Silky.
A neat little mix between the old guard, or a neat little clash between the old guard and one of the more up-and-coming players out here from the Chinese region. Silky, for a while, has been a mainstay of the Chinese region. I think for the longest time, he was considered to be straight up the best Zerg player in all of China. Whereas Oriana has only really started making a name for himself since 2021 onwards, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you bring that up because, as you mentioned, I think I would still actually say that Silky is the best Zerg player in China at the moment. I think I still stand by that as well, which is why coming into this, he's a heavy favorite. I expect him to go far. I expect him to make it out into the playoffs. But even though he may be the best Zerg player, there have been some rising stars, and it has been really cool to see Oriana rise up through the ranks over the course of the past couple of years. We have been having the luxury of being casting him over the weeks, or over the past couple of weeks, you know, in GPO and Grand Papa Opens, in these online weekly regionals, and Oriana has been improving quite a lot over the year.
Yeah, definitely. You can see him tighten up his play quite a bit more. I remember the first time I think we casted him in the qualifiers, I believe, or in ESL Masters China regional, and he was coming up with some very questionable builds, I would say. But yeah, in these past couple of weeks, he's really refined them, and he's been having a lot of success with them.
Yeah, he really has, and I'm sure he's very used to the style of Silky as well. Silky is typically a very aggressive Zerg player, and Oriana was forged in the flames of Miyamika, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I don't. He's gonna be getting into this, and then he's gonna see Link Bane, and he's like, "Wait, what? Like Zerg players, they make Banelings? What's going on?" So
why aren't you going Infestors right off the bat? Like what?
True.
You're actually using AOE.
So yeah, we'll see how this all does come together. What's really interesting to me, at least, is that Silky hasn't gone for anything too quirky. It's been very standard out of our Chinese Zerg players so far.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense coming out from Silky. You mentioned it, he is pretty much a heavy favorite coming into this match. This is also just game number 1 of this best of 3, so I wouldn't be surprised if Silky is just feeling confident in his fundamentals, and he decides to use game number 1 just as a way to gauge how Oriana's feeling tonight.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a bold move. Oriana does go for the tumor, and oh, he does. He gets the first tumor.
There you go. Well, ish.
Yeah, true.
It's not quite that massive confidence boost where you feel invincible, but it's a nice little morale pickup.
Yeah, it's a nice pickup here, and it is going to delay some of the creep shred. What's important is that we are loading into Golden Aura, and this is one of those maps where actually the bases are very close together. You can defend with quite minimal units with your queens. It doesn't take too many tumors at all to connect your bases, so you can be very defensible on 3 bases. 4 bases, that's when things get a little bit more crazy and a little bit more scary once we do get up to that point, as we're getting into our openers.
Yeah, cool to see this from Oriana. I do feel like I have been missing this a little bit in the past week or so specifically. A lot of Terran players in the new patch have been experimenting a lot with Banshee play. You know, they've been, what's the term that you use? Call it Battle Mech plus Banshee?
Yeah.
Banshee Mech, something like that. Yeah, we saw a lot of that over the past month or so in the first couple of weeks when the patch went live, but I feel like specifically these past 7 days, a lot of Terran players have been going back to basics and haven't really been utilizing the Banshee as much.
Yeah, it's refreshing, right? Because this is a very old school opener, right? It's 3cc Banshee, and you know, we've been seeing a lot of like the Beyond opener, you know, the Turax on the low ground, or like these Cyclone based openers from Cure. So it's great to see something a little bit more standard. And Oriana, you know, he's going back to basics. He's calming things down a little bit here, at least in game 1. Maybe likewise, as you mentioned before, just kind of testing the waters here against Silky's playstyle.
Yeah, already the Banshee does get revealed, but it doesn't seem like it's meant to be a surprise here from Oriana either. It's still, as the game continues, you know, you can get hyper flight rotors on that. Banshees can still provide a lot of utility, especially if you... Oh, okay. I saw for a very brief moment a Raven on the way. I thought he was coming up with that classic 2 Banshee, 1 Raven creep clearing squad, but apparently not.
Yeah, the classic creep skewing sword that I think only
10 times fast. Yeah.
True. I think only like Special and like TY did that, but it was a thing for a little bit. And I was freaking out for a moment as well, but thankfully we do go for the add-on swap. There's no Raven here. We're throwing down additional Raxes. 5 Rax on 3 bases is pretty standard, and Silky goes in for a full scout. He sees everything in the main.
Yeah, it will confirm that he is up against Bio. Will confirm that, you know, Silky's not going to be too aggressive in the early game. Going to go for a pretty standard Starport plus Hellion harass as an opener.
Oh, yeah, exactly. As the Banshees get across the map, 3 workers go down. They're going to be threatening drones here at the natural. At the same time, Hellions are looking for a dive as well, and Oriana is getting damage done. Up!
Yeah! Up! Lings Zeus around every single Hellion, and that's going to be it for the ground pressure here from Oriana. Unfortunately, he did decide to test the waters a little bit by that 4th base, and yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't a lot for his Hellions to do. Thankfully, though, these Banshees put in a lot of work.
Yeah, this is almost a mineral line. 11 drones go down to just the Banshees. That's amazing. If only we didn't throw away all the Hellions, that would have been better. But regardless, the Banshees have done a lot of economic damage. They have more than paid for themselves, and now Oriana can focus on his push.
Yeah, he's got a bit of momentum going his way. He's already forced Silky to rebuild all of those drones that he lost, so Silky doesn't have as much of an army supply as he normally would to deal with this initial move out. He does have Banelings though, and Baneling's speed is still a ways off, unfortunately.
Yeah, still a ways off here when slow Banelings are going to have a hard time engaging, especially with the tank behind this. Meanwhile, drones are going down. The Banshees are still getting more damage done. We break through the Queen. We're going for the hatchery.
He wants it so bad, but Silky will be able to push this back. Tank a little bit exposed. Very good flank coming in here from Silky with all these Lings. Able to clear up the tanks, able to keep that hatchery alive. Will lose a lot of drones once again. This is some fantastic multi-prong coming out from Oriana, but Silky has kept his bases alive and hasn't lost too many of his key units yet.
Yeah, exactly. He's able to maintain his army, maintain his Banelings, but that's another 10 workers. That's 21 drones in total for 2 Banshees, by the way. That is insane. So an amazing amount of economic damage. And also what's important is that Oriana may have lost a tank, but he maintained his Marine count, and he's going for a second push. But as he moves out, Silky is getting ready for a backstab.
Yeah, as one moves out, the other moves in. That's just life. Can't explain that. Yeah.
Let's go, as Oriana is going to be pushing Silky, attempting to expand and take a 5th base off of creep. We'll see if he gets away with it as Oriana's pushing forward. This base is still very low from that earlier push.
Yeah, light sneeze from all these Marines should be enough to take it out. Silky, though, has recognized what's coming his way. He doesn't go for the backstab. He instead turns around and is trying to once again go for a bit of a flank, but unfortunately Oriana is ready with these Marines. Pulls a few too many Marines back, though, by the looks of things. Tank is very vulnerable, and a couple of Banelings will break through, but that's still a healthy Marine count, and 0 Banelings for Silky.
God, and that base is it's so tempting. It's so tempting to dive on that hatchery, and he goes for it. The Transfuse will barely keep it alive, and with the Transfuse, Oriana, he cannot break this, but we have reinforcements.
Oh, the parade pushing does come in. Once again, barely any Banelings here from Silky. One of them did connect, but it barely put a dent in Oriana's army. That is how well he's been able to macro and produce units throughout this entire engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Behind this is getting his own 4th base up and running. Silky has the 5th, but he cannot mine. He's cut off from that hatchery, and Oriana snowballing out of control. A lot of this is because of that economic damage. Again, those Banshees may have just won him the game because they did so much, delayed the production, delayed the Ling Bane, and by the time Silky got everything back up and running, I mean, now he's lost a 4th. Now he's stuck on 3 bases. He's trying to expand here, but Oriana still has a hefty army.
And now that 5th is going to go down.
Yeah, it does
want it to mine.
It does get found out. Silky was maybe holding his breath, hoping that maybe it would go by unnoticed, but it will fall in the end as well.
The mine.
Up!
The mine!
Up!
The mine!
Up!
Will not take out all of those Banelings. I say whew, but I'm actually a little disappointed. It's a Terran player.
Oh, that's a kill that'll cancel the hatchery. You know what? That mine is still ready to get triggered once again. So, speaking of mines,
oh, that was a fantastic connection here for Oriana. Barely any Banelings left. The last of them do connect, and it may just be enough for Silky to start fighting back. He does send a massive link force towards Oriana's base, but now we're in a full-on base trade. Oriana doesn't want to turn around. He wants to end things right now.
He takes down the Baneling nest. No more Banelings available here for Silky. Without them, how can he defend? He's taking down the third base, but at the same time, there's just too much chaos going on. GG gets called, and Oriana will take game number 1.
This is why we make Banshees, Terran players, in TVZ.
Oh my god. I mean, to be fair, you know, we don't want to be making Banshees expecting 21 worker kills. That's only something that Oriana can pull off. But yeah, that was really impressive stuff. I think the most impressive thing, not just that he was able to get damage done, but if you remember, especially the second wave of worker kills, like he was killing those workers as he was pushing at the same time. Like he was able to pull apart the attention of Silky.
Yeah, after the Hellions went down and we kind of panned back into the main base of Silky, I noticed those Banshees still alive, and I was in the dead air, and I was thinking, man, if only Terran had recall. Well, as it turns out, apparently you don't need recall if you're Oriana, and if you are able to sneak your Banshees out to another base and still get a ton of damage.
Exactly. And yeah, I also didn't think that they would really be too impactful. Like after their first wave of kills, I thought that maybe they would, you know, go down in the natural in the midst of the fight, but no, yeah, you know, Oriana, great attention to detail to be able to hold position them and to get as much damage done as possible. On top of that, also really good control with his main pushes as well. Sure, he would start getting cleaned up, he'd be losing his tanks, but he did keep his Marines alive, so he could just snowball out of control. And we didn't really get to talk much about it, but that was on Golden Ore. You know, the rush distance by ground is that much shorter, so those parade pushes, they hit that much harder as well.
It's one map I will never veto. I only know one style of Terran, and that is parade push, and it's the one map that allows me to do that.
Let's go. And it's not even like Oriana was 8-raxing or anything like that. You know, he wasn't going for a 3-base solid. No, he was making SCVs, he was expanding, he was teching, he was making upgrades. Like, yeah, that was not an all-in by any means out of our Terran player.
Not at all. It really looked like he was gearing up and getting ready for the late game towards the end there as well. You know, you mentioned really good attention to detail here from Oriana, and yes, it is really impressive to see how he was able to correctly prioritize where to split his attention, but at the same time, it also just seemed like he had a lot of attention to spare throughout the entire game. Real good allocation of his APM there.
Exactly. And by the time we got to the end, you know, when Silky went for that big counterattack, it was a bit of a desperation move, right? It was a little bit, you know, of a last-ditch effort to try to force the Terran to turn back around to allow Silky to expand. But now we get into game number 2 here, and we're going to be getting into a much larger map, something that a Zerg player can get a little bit more comfortable in.
Indeed. Something that you wouldn't think it just looking at it from the mini-map, but a map that actually has a very massive rush distance.
Yeah, it's also very kind of the center of the map is very interesting as well. You know, there's a lot of twists, there's a lot of turns, there's a lot of choke points that you can take advantage of as well. And well, here we go, we are diving into game number 2.
Indeed we are. We're going to be diving into Hecate, where we're here in the top right-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the top right-hand corner. We have our red Terran player coming down from the land of China, representing Mystery Gaming. We have Oriana.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Hecate, we have the best Zerg player in all of China, representing the Starving Camels, SSLD. It is Silky. And I don't know if you said Hecate on purpose or not. I don't.
Let's say it was on purpose.
Let's go. Just wait until we get into some of the other maps, mate. There's been quite some twists and turns when it comes to how casters have chosen to pronunciate them. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one. Again, there are a lot more bases to take here on this map. You know, the likelihood of us going into a longer macro game is a little bit higher. But I wonder how our players are going to adjust, both our Terran and our Zerg, after game 1.
Yeah, we kind of notice how in game number 1, both players were playing very standard 3CC before Starport from Oriana, 3-hatch Lair coming out from Silky, you know, pretty standard stuff coming out. But now that they've sussed each other out, we'll see what adjustments they will make here. My eyes are a lot more on Silky here, just because, you know, he is more of the veteran player. I do think that if anyone kind of understands how to adjust their play mid-series, it should be him.
Yeah, like when I think of Silky, I think of his WTL run, and in World Team League, Silky, he was very aggressive, very cheesy. For those wondering, in the Team League format, you'd have a couple of days ahead of time to prepare, and Silky would come in with some specialized builds to take down some high-caliber players, some otherwise favored players. But in a format like this, you do have significantly less time to prepare, so that is something to bear in mind. And also in a ZVT, I don't know how creative you can really get. I expect to see some roaches at some point, but with Silky being down in this series, like the pressure is on.
It very much is. And again, as we reach the final couple of days here, every win matters in this pseudo-Swiss format. Silky right now is...
Okay. Yeah, as it looks like we did have a little bit of latency there, but it looks like we should be okay. To come back in.
Yep. Ooh. Just a quick little glitch here, but hopefully moving forward, it shouldn't happen again,
Yeah, hopefully everything is okay, and if there are any issues, we will make sure that they are resolved. As we get into game number 2, and yeah, you were kind of talking about the standings, and you're talking about the placements here, and I was even looking myself, and look, this is the problem with the Swiss format. It's so brutal. You're like, wait, Silky, he's at the bottom of the group, and I look at who he's played. He played against Oliveira in the first round, and Nice in the second. Like, come on. Like,
the two best players of their respective countries. Oliveira, best player in all of China for the past decade or so at this point, the world champion of 2023, and then you have did you say Nice or Haas?
Yeah,
Nice is who you said top 2 player from Taiwan for the past decade as well, top player from Taiwan for a lot of those years too. Yeah, absolutely brutal.
It is like, I don't think I like saying that Silky's at the bottom of the group and then looking at who he played, like, that's a little bit misleading. It's it's like, he is at the bottom of the group, you're not wrong, but it's like, oh god, his opponents were brutal, and anyone would have had a hard time with those 2 opponents. So Silky does have to fight back here and now. You know, I mentioned earlier that I would typically expect him to make it into the playoffs based off of who's currently in the group itself, but yeah, it looks like by the luck of the draw, he just has been having a hard time with his opponents, has been just getting some rough draws here.
Very rough draws. Every moment counts from here on out if you're Silky. Oriana, I believe, at the same time, he's not quite at the bottom of the group, but doesn't have a very positive standing either. I believe if he is able to take out Silky 2-0, he should be at least 90% confirmed out, but yeah, even a 2-1 will mean that he has to try again tomorrow. Hellions try to come in, but they will immediately be surrounded by these Lings. Oriana able to break free and gets a full scout, confirms the lair is on the way, takes out a drone, takes out 2 drones. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brave dive here. It was a bold move out of Oriana. He gets punished for it, but he does get at least a couple of workers. Was 3 drones really worth 6 Hellions? Personally, I feel like we should have gone in conjunction with the Banshees, because once again, it is going to be a 3CC Banshee opener here from Oriana. Cloak was researched as well, but yeah, the Banshees, they have this time stayed a little bit further back at home. They haven't quite gotten as much damage as the previous game.
Yeah, Oriana, I think, just saw an opportunity, went for it, and unfortunately for him, it didn't quite work out as well as he would have hoped. Certainly not as well as the previous game.
Yeah, exactly. As the Banshees are going for a bit of a counterattack, we do have a third base being set up here from Oriana. Again, we just haven't really killed too many workers at all. We do catch some transferring workers. We catch a Queen even.
Pretty good pickoff. Torkarl's not quite in range to deal with all of these Banshees. Once again, the immaculate control of Oriana will allow him to get a bit more damage done here. Will delay Silky a little bit more when it comes to his build.
Yeah, exactly. As we're not done, by the way, we get a queen, we get 7 more drones here. Pretty damn good. We have a healthy amount of HP left on these Banshees. We actually go straight for another queen. But we do have Transfuse.
Yeah, Transfuse will be enough to save this queen and will be enough to take that Banshee down to red health.
Oh no!
And even kill it with a bit of a follow-up snipe here from another queen.
There we go. One of the Banshees does go down, but 1 Banshee for 7 workers is a pretty good value overall. And now we have the next step here, the next stage from Oriana with his 5 Raxes. He's working on his armory for 2-2. Eventually, once 1-1 does kick in, and the main army is pushing out. This time, though, a little bit different. We actually aren't incorporating tanks for the first push. Instead, Widow Mines.
Yeah, not as much safety here from Oriana, but I guess he has identified that Silky is a bit more of a Ling Bane player, not too fond of Roaches or Hydras, at least not yet anyway. And so it allows him to go a little bit sooner. Widowmine will get a fantastic connection, but not good enough for Oriana to keep this going. Thankfully, he is able to evacuate most of his Marines, and he is, still has a bit of momentum going his way.
Yeah, I mean, he canceled the 4th base. The Banshee goes back in, but this time the Banshee is going to get cleaned up by these queens. So a much stronger defense from Silky, at least when it comes to his economy. He does hold on to his 4 bases. He's expanding, taking a 5th base, but Oriana's going for a split push. He has the double jump on the left. He has the double jump on the right. He's getting into the mineral line.
And this is something that worked brilliant for him in game number 1. Should work out really well for him as well in game number 2. Widow Mines aren't quite able to burrow in time, but once again, very quick reaction from Oriana. He's able to pick up the majority of his Marines and keep them alive. Takes out another 7 drones for the cost of 1 medevac full of Marines.
Yeah, pretty well worth it here for Oriana as he comes in once again. This time he's going to be fighting off a creep. Good target firing on the Baneling. Saw them go down. There's 1 left, and it looks like it barely will connect. Not quite, as Oriana backs off, but Silky does hold on to his 5th.
Yeah, very hot pickup here from Oriana. Traded very well against these Lings and Banes, but like you said, Silky is still standing. The backbone of Silky's production is still up and running.
Yeah, it is for now, but here comes another push, and you can see Oriana, the macro here from our Terran player, is starting to snowball out of control. The Terran up 30 supply at this point, and Silky has been struggling here, hasn't had the best connections, has had some rough trades, maybe even missing a couple of inject cycles here as he tries to push into this concave.
Yeah, not the best connections here from Silky. Oriana, meanwhile, able to isolate these Banelings from all of these Lings. Oh man, that is the worst case scenario as a Zerg player. Dropping the main base will go down, but will provide a very, very distraction for Silky over here. Even a couple of drones go down.
Yeah, 6 workers go down. The desperation from Silky to pull the boys to help fight with that. Meanwhile, you see Silky setting up a big counterattack this time once again. He knows that he can't quite defend back at home. There are just too many Marines. Oriana is pushing on in. Back at home, we have reinforcements though, and Oriana, he will have forces to deal with that counterattack.
Well, if he's looking.
It's true, it's true. As he is moving out, and oh, does he? He does see it!
Yeah, catches wind of this massive counterattack being prepared here from Silky, and he immediately turns around with his reinforcements, deals with all of them, and is now chasing them all the way back to his side of the map. Meanwhile, on Silky's side, looks like all the Marines did get taken out, so Silky has a little bit of breathing room, but it shouldn't last too long. Yeah, round number 2 is gearing up here for Oriana.
Yeah, Oriana was a little bit distracted by the run. By that meant that Silky did clean up one of the armies, but he's still on the back foot. He's working on 2-2, working on now an infestation bit. A late pit here at the 10-minute mark. He is on 5 bases, but very limited crease spread. And Oriana, as he rocks up here towards his hatchery, we can see that Silky is out of position. Up.
Yeah, a couple of Banelings tried to get connections on the mineral line, but didn't quite make it. Huge Widowmine hits here from Oriana will pretty much take out every single Baneling. Banelings from the flank are trying to connect. Some of them do. And it is barely not enough to chase Oriana back, it seems.
Yeah, barely, not enough. There's a couple more Banelings being morphed in here as well. At the same time, Silky going for a big counterattack. Do we have any reinforcements? No, we do not. Oriana sent his reinforcements across the map, but he does break the 5th once again.
And getting some massive flashbacks here to game number 1 Light, just looking at this army supply difference. This counterattack from Silky is a massive desperation move, and it will not be enough. GG is